So we have just had a screening of Blue for a Boy, Azul and Niño, and we have some creators here. So if you'd like to introduce yourself and who you are.
Absolutely. I'm Raul Guardans. I am guilty for this happening. I am the writer, the director, the producer, and one of the actors of the movie. And, well, if you want to present yourself in español, si quieres decir quién eres y tanto.
Soy Eva y soy actriz que interpretará a uno de los personajes de la película juntamente con Raúl.
So we're going to have a bit of a fun bilingual interview today. So where did the idea come from? How did it start?
So I think that I've always lived between two worlds where I went to a certain type of school, of a private school in Barcelona, and with everything that entailed, and the women who raised me on one side were extremely influential, and then on the other side I kind of discovered my queerness, and I discovered that world, and I discovered what all of that meant to me, and I think that I wanted to merge the two worlds. I think that is always really fascinating to me, and I've always been very fascinated by unlikely friendships, and I think that creates an empathy, and it starts a dialogue. And so I put people in a situation where they wouldn't normally ever meet or be friends, and people who wouldn't usually meet or be friends, and make them interact and make them have the hard conversations and see where that takes us. And it's usually, I always see things with a slight of humor, but it's usually kind of based on a true heart and true part of my experience.
Y como actriz, ¿cómo llegaste a trabajar en la película?
En la película, pues fue muy bonito porque Raúl contactó conmigo sin yo conocer nada de él, porque habíamos trabajado juntos, poquito, pero juntos en una serie de producción española. Y me dijo, me gustaría que hicieras esta película. Y me quedé como, perdona, ¿quién es este chico que me escribe con una videollamada desde Estados Unidos? Me pasó el guión, me pareció un guión fantástico y estuve encantadísima desde el primer momento.
Es verdad, es verdad.
Would you like to hear the translation?
Yes. So basically, I contacted her while in the States, and because I was studying there. And we had worked briefly together. We didn't really coincide, but we worked in the same TV show in Spain. So then I knew of her from that and kind of had followed her career since. And I just contacted her and was like, hey, I've thought of you while I wrote this. Do you want to come on board? And she was like, sure, from the first moment. So, yeah.
And I'm interested in the title, Blue for a Boy, Azul de Niño. Why did you go for something that is, I guess, like gender reveal party?
So the whole movie revolves around expectations of the main character, which is Eva, and her kind of firm beliefs that are kind of projected, I guess, in blue for a boy and pink for a girl, in the sense that she does not have any experience or knowledge of queerness or sexuality or whatever, and that is one of her blocks throughout the movie of not understanding her husband's or my experience. So it's kind of based on the main character's belief, and in fact it kind of translates also into the costume design of the movie, where she's mostly wearing blue even though she's a girl, and I'm mostly wearing pink even though I'm a boy, and so it kind of works to show that the world around her is so much more complex than she gets to realize, and that's why it's called Blue for a Boy. But yeah.
And where was it shot? Because the hospital scenes were quite...
So it's actually an office building that we kind of remodeled into a kind of like a private clinic at the outskirts of Barcelona. It's in Mataró. I spent the summers right next to there, and my father used to work there. So it's like this smaller city nearby, and that's where we kind of knew of the place, and then we ended up shooting there. It's kind of an interesting story because we were meant to shoot in a much bigger but much more complicated location, and we ended up shooting in this one, which actually I feel like worked better for what we wanted to portray. Her house, though, is in Barcelona, the main character's apartment, and most of the street scenes are set in Barcelona.
Y como actriz, has trabajado en muchas películas o series con temas de LGBT,
No.
¿no?
De hecho, creo que es la primera vez.
Ah.
Sí, y fue complicado. Tenía muchas preguntas a hacer sobre cómo veía el mundo él. para a través de mi personaje transmitir lo que él quería. Entonces no tenía suficientes conocimientos, pero muy atentamente me estuvo instruyendo y ha sido una experiencia muy, muy bonita, la verdad.
Yes, sorry, I keep forgetting. So no, she hadn't worked in LGBT movies before, explicitly at least, and she had a lot of questions and a lot of kind of question marks about how my view of the world was affected by that and how she would portray that on film. And so there were lengthy conversations had about that and how we could make it work for the experience of the movie, being a queer movie.
Sobre todo porque Natalia, el personaje que interpreto, es todo lo contrario a lo que sería políticamente correcto. Entonces me preocupaba mucho este aspecto, ¿no?
So her character is extremely what we would consider politically incorrect, especially in this kind of movie, which clearly advocates for the contrary. So even though it's subtle, it's not like she's shouting slurs at people, but her beliefs of the world are very much at odds with what the film wants to convey. So then she had a lot of questions of how that would be represented in a way that it didn't seem disrespectful or out of place.
Yes, that's muy interesante. That's really interesting. So with the journey of the two characters, how did you decide to have the end? I don't really want to have spoilers. I don't know, like how comfortable you don't want to.
Go for it. It's fine.
So how did you get to the decision to have them kind of go through the journey, but almost end up without really like learning? And do you feel like they've learned enough when it comes to circle?
I think that I think that Daniel does move on, even though there is a post-credit scene that kind of leaves it up in the air. But I do think that Natalia is very much, I think her perspective of the world has changed, but her perspective of herself maybe hasn't enough. I think that the movie portrays her opportunity to take a leap, and she ends up not taking it, which I think is the reality of so many women, especially when they have their own blockage, thinking that, well, she has to take care now of this man who's just come out of hospital. She has a lot of guilt that she carries with her. She has a lot of set ideas that she carries with her, and I didn't want to make it hunky-dory at the end where she just kind of like changed completely within the 2 weeks that the movie happens. And I did want to stay true to the fact that maybe it will happen in the future, but I think that we see her resigned to what she considers to be her reality, while my character Daniel, I think, ends up portraying more of a freedom of potential change. Not explicit, but potential, for sure. And I did want there to be a hope for change, because I think that we can all kind of change our perspective and change the way that we act around other people forever. I do think the last song in the movie, though, is called I Am Not Unchanged. And it just means that even though the circumstances are the same and she's where she starts, her person is not the same. So, yeah.
Yeah, but her changing, I guess it is 2 weeks and you can't become a new person, and there are subtle little, it's just like bringing it to the end. You do kind of have the expectations of that hunky-dory ending, but it was nice to have that realistic, I guess. What have the audience reactions been so far with your film?
So it's a very young film. It only just premiered in Australia a couple weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
In the Perth Queer Film Festival. We've had good reactions. It was the opening film of that festival. It's got a couple lined up. Some of them I can say and some of them I can't. So we'll see more audience reactions as it goes. For now, it's only been shown to patrons and friends and people in the industry. There's been a couple of industry passes. So that feedback is always skewed. But in general, people have been very excited by it. And the biggest audience reaction I had that actually kind of brought me to tears was there's a friend of the family who's a Filipino, and she came to see the movie, and she said that in her culture it's also very much a taboo, and in her family it had been a taboo for ages, and she had this cousin who had a very, very similar situation to her husband in the movie, and that she brought her entire family to see it because she was so moved by the fact that it opened up a conversation in her family, and they were able to have an open conversation about what this meant in reality, and they were all crying by the end of it. And then I was crying as well, so it was a lot. But yeah, it was that is the kind of thing that really fills my heart. But yeah.
Well, I mean, that feels like that is the reason you want to make these films, just to have that potential conversation.
Yeah.
Did you have a big queer cast and crew when making this?
So it was very important to me. I've always been on a one-man crusade to have accurate representation, where I think that there's a double standard with straight and cis actors playing queer characters not being held to a higher standard than straight cis actors playing queer characters. I think that when a straight or a cis actor happens to be good at playing a queer character, they tend to be very praised, and they tend to be given awards for it, while queer actors don't get the straight and the cis roles. So it was very important to me to have that happen. However, it's curious because it's interesting because a lot of the queer characters are played by hetero-cis actors, but a lot of the hetero-cis characters are played, like, for example, her almost lover in the movie is played by a gay actor, and there was the woman who is my coworker, who I find after a lot of time, she's played by a bi actor, and it was very important to me that there was equal opportunity, and in the cast and crew the same. We had non-binary people, we had a bunch of gay and queer people in the crew. I think that's always important. It's also the type of people that I gravitate towards, so it wasn't that much a conscious decision than an unconscious decision of being surrounded by my people and by the people that I feel most comfortable with. So it kind of ended up being a pretty diverse crew, but it wasn't that much of a conscious decision, to be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting, because it feels like a lot of the films do end up having a queer cast and crew because they happen to know a big community of filmmakers who are also queer. Y cómo era trabajando juntos, que sé que había muchas escenas que solo salían vosotros dos. ¿Lo encontraste difícil o era fácil trabajar juntos?
Trabajar con Raúl es muy fácil, en general, como director y como actor, as an actor. Hicimos un pacto al principio, no sé si lo puedo contar, pero
sí,
son nuestras amigas. Cuando como principio empezamos a trabajar el guión con muchos kilómetros de distancia, comprendimos los dos que nos entendíamos muy bien a través de la música. Y yo le pedí, vale, pues entonces si me quieres contar este personaje o el ritmo de esta secuencia o dónde pretendes llegar, cuéntamelo con una canción. Y hicimos una carpeta de música en Spotify en la que él me iba diciendo, bueno, pues aquí yo esta secuencia con esta música, pero no porque fuera a sonar la canción, sino porque es lo que él le transmitía. Yo le entendía a través de esa canción. Y yo al revés también.
Sí, es verdad. I'll translate, even though I'm pretty sure by your reaction that you caught most of it, but I'll still do it. So, yes, we started communicating online because, again, we were living in different continents when we started working on the movie. And then COVID came around, so that was also a thing. But we communicated very easily from the start, and we kind of spoke the same language. And then over time, we developed this thing where she asked me, and it ended up being extremely useful, if we would put in common different music for different moments of the film. And so we created a common kind of folder, a playlist, where we knew each song where it corresponded to the movie, and she would be like, what do you think of this song for this scene? And I would be like, yeah, that actually sounds like what I was, not that much from a score point of view, but much more from like an emotional point of view and where she had to be emotionally. So that was kind of our baseline from where we kind of went, because I think that we spoke the same language musically as well. So that was very useful.
Y me acuerdo de una vez, I remember one time, que estábamos rodando una secuencia y me vino y me dice, escucha, y me puso la canción.
So there was this one time, and I actually can think which one it is, where actually the day before she had been like, I don't know about this scene, whatever, and I found a song that actually I think worked, and then I was like, listen, like right before we shot, and I just gave her the music so that she could like be in the moment right there, and I think it was really helpful. But
Is
yeah.
there any chance that this Spotify album is available? Just
It's
for the
so
vibes?
random though. Like you wouldn't think that those are the songs. They don't necessarily fit with what the end of products end up being, because I think that, for example, Eva didn't. A lot of the humor and the little more acid moments were found in editing, or I had them in my mind, but they happened when you put the puzzle together, and I think that. She didn't expect them to be. So her playlist was a lot more serious and kind of dowdy than the end of project ended up being. But yeah.
De hecho, cuando vi el montaje final, fue una de las cosas que me sorprendió, este punto de humor. Dije, no lo tenía para nada. Me sorprendió muy gratamente.
I mean, yeah, the humor was one of the bigger surprises, I think, for a lot of people, because like my mother had read the script and she found a lot of things, I think, more humorous. I never want to make you laugh out loud, but I do like seeing the ridicule in situations and how things get so out of hand that you just kind of like want to have a drink and laugh at the situation.
For me, it was pulling in the bottle of wine out the bag.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So I think my final question is, what are you most proud of with this film?
That it happened. Honestly, I had no prior experience putting a film together, and I was doing multitasking like so much, and I was so lucky because I was coming back from a different country, so I didn't really have a network here with people, and that's why also you were saying before about a queer cast and crew. When I moved back, it's just the people that I gravitated towards, so they ended up being the people that were working in the movie, and I think that so much was against it. Like so many obstacles were against it. COVID happened. We were all wearing masks when we were shooting it. We were all testing. Our script supervisor got COVID the first day of shooting, and we had to find another one on 24 hours notice. Post-production processes were so long because our budget would only allow for people to work when they were available. So we would have to like schedule things around other people's timings and schedules and stuff. So it really was a labor of love, and I am so grateful to all of the team, my family, my friends, everyone who has kind of pushed me and pushed it, because I think that this movie would not exist if not all of us had what I like to call kind of rowing in favor of the current. So it really is a labor of love and effort and work, and I think that it portrays my point of view of the world when I was 22 years old, but it does portray it accurately. I think that it does. It's a little time capsule, and I hope it brings people together. I really hope that that kind of conversation that I was describing before, that is, my heart is, I've won with that. If only one family is opening up a conversation through this movie, I couldn't be happier. That makes me very proud.
¿Tú tienes un momento de que estás orgullosa?
Bueno, orgullosa, sí, primero de todo soy súper agradecida con Raúl de que me propusiera este personaje que ha sido un bombón. Y orgullosa, sí, estoy orgullosa de interpretar a una mujer. Una de las cosas que se puede decir de Natalia es que no es una mujer feminista, ¿no? Lo que te decía antes de políticamente incorrecto, pero me siento orgullosa de interpretar a un personaje que realmente existe. En la sociedad hay muchas Natalias y hacer este espejo creo que es muy interesante.
So she said that she's very grateful to me because I gave her the role. And she said that she's very grateful that she had the opportunity and very proud that she had the opportunity to portray a character that, albeit has its faults and is imperfect and is not the epitome of feminism that as we consider it in society, that she was able to portray someone who was real and who she's met and who there's those people in society, and the fact that her story was told in this kind of context, I think that she's very proud that this is how it happened. So yeah.
Yes.
So it doesn't show that this was your first film. It doesn't show that you didn't, like you said, that you were just pulling it all together. It is absolutely amazing, and you have done a wonderful job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for submitting and coming and watching your film and representing.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Gracias a ti.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.